Welcome back to the channel. Sorry it's been so long. I've been taking a little break for educational purposes, but I am back nevertheless with the first large set review, the first minifig set review of the channel, 75218 X-wing Starfighter, which was just released this year. So pretty recent, and before I get into the ship, I'm going to do quick looks at everything else. Before we get into looking at the box, I'd like to just go through some statistics here. It was released in 2018 with 730 pieces on the box, 731 according to Brickset. Came with 2 minifigures, 2 droids, or 4 minifigures if that's the way you count things. It cost, in the US at least, $79.99 retail, which gave it a price per part of 10.9 cents, that's actually pretty good. 4-star review on Brickset, and that's it for specs. Now, if we take a look at the back, it is on Yavin 4, and this time it's Biggs' X-wing. I'll get into that feature here in a minute. Let's see if I can get that glare off. But in sort of a landed position, and it doesn't show Luke Skywalker anywhere. So likewise, it shows you a bunch of the action features, all of which I'll show you on the actual ship. So that should be it for the box. Next up, we get this channel's first ever look at minifigures on this, which you can already see are a huge step up from the past ones. Of course, just to get through the droids, the R2-D2 is the updated one, if I can get to show you here. This is pretty common. I mean, we got it in Anakin Starfighter. It's a cheap little figure, but that's all I'm going to say about him, because we've seen him a lot before. The next one is R2-Q2, who is I believe a salvaged Imperial astromech droid, and if I can grab, I have the other one over here. Alright, so I've got him. He's right here. This was the older version. Came with the Imperial V-Wing, which was probably sometime around 2012. And just looking at the two, you can see there's quite a bit of differences. But mostly the one on the left is from the X-wing. It seems to have a lot finer printing. Overall, it does look like one of those, like a figure of droid you'd see in the sequels. This one, on the other hand, in my right hand, the V-wing astromech, looks like something you'd have seen around the time of the Clone Wars. I got a little warping on the back, but that's okay. There's only one, I'd say, major difference between the two, and it's the body color, and you can definitely see it from behind. The one on the left from this X-wing is a huge step down. I feel like they really should not have had this dark stone gray back, as opposed to the original one was just silver all around, and I believe the droid in canon is just silver all around, so I mean, the printing on the front slightly makes up for it by giving it the illusion that it's light, like pearl gray, if you know what I mean. but it's not. I mean, and that's not a huge difference just by looking at it, but it is a step down by Lego. Next up, we look at the two actual minifigures, starting with Biggs Darklighter, of which he's only been seen twice as far as I know. And I do have his other minifigure. The only problem is I don't have the original 1999 helmet, I believe it was, which was it was these kinds of helmets, the originals. And I'll get to that in a minute when I talk about Luke. But this Biggs, you can see just by the torso print, I believe has been featured on other pilots so far this year. It's got a front and back. His legs are also printed with that, which that's really nice. Comes with a blaster in his right hand. He does have a reversible face. Looks a little more determined. This one's more cheerful. And these helmets are, I think they're actually pretty cool. I didn't have high hopes for them, but they kind of are. I'll show you more of that when I get into Luke here. And Luke actually comes with a blaster pistol as well. Same as Biggs. I chose to just give him his lightsaber for now, but that's not important. What is important is the design of this figure, because it looks amazing. I think it looks really, really similar to what it did, what the actor Mark Hamill did in Episode 4, specifically, A New Hope. But just like Biggs, it's the same torso print, same leg print. Sorry, my hands are usually in the way. I mean, I'll work on that. But anyways, same back print. He does also have a reversible face, of which this one is more cheerful. This back one is also more determined or upset. I mean, we've seen that face before, I believe, on the Jedi Knight Luke in the Darth Vader duel from a few years ago, I think. Might be the same face. Pretty close. But this is a huge step up from the X-wing from 2012, which came with this Luke here. You can already see, well, if we walk through it step by step, if you just look, this one has no leg printing from 2012. The torso print is drastically more detailed on the 2018 version. The face, the dimple at the bottom is definitely closer to, I believe, what the actor looked like in real life, like Lego-fied, made in the Lego form. But the helmet is where things really start to kick into gear. I can get these off just to show you an exact difference between the two. Now, originally, I didn't have super high hopes for the 2018 version. I mean, I knew that it had this visor on here. Let's see if I can get it to focus, please. But, however, I felt like it looked too bubbly, too large for the minifigures' heads. But I feel like that's really made up for in terms of, like, the amount of detail. But on the minifigures' heads, it looks a lot different than, like, this guy, the Snowspeeder Gunner, which had an original helmet like this, and then they just printed the visor on. I prefer the see-through visor. I think that's kind of cool, and I think they could learn to do it with more of the helmets from Lego. But besides those helmets, yeah, you can clearly see that this is a huge step up from the other Luke from 2012. But that's about it for minifigures. I mean, comes with 4. The only thing that I think Lego could have done better on is to include a hairpiece for Luke. I know there's a lot of debate going on right now about whether it should be the dirty blonde or the blonde hair. But I feel like just one or the other would have been nice to have. Same for Biggs. Like, that's not a hard hairpiece to make or find. But nevertheless, these minifigures, I think they're great the way they are. And the astromechs do what they need to do. So, next we're going to get into the switching feature of the ship. So, I'll bring it over for this part. Ooh, I just shot a... Alright, so here's the X-wing. Just going to kind of try to inch it in here. And as you can see, on top of the wing here, we've got the 5 red stripes up here that should designate it to be Luke's. Luke was red 5 in the original trilogy, and you can take that tile off and replace it with this one to make it red 3, designated by the 3 red stripes, which was Biggs' Starfighter in episode 4, and they give you the pieces and the stickers for both of them. They're only on the top. On the bottom, it is blank. You can see on these tiles right here, which is fine. You're not going to see the underside very often. But that's the switching feature in the nutshell. So let's get to the review of the actual ship itself. So the main thing right here, sorry about this kind of awkward camera edge. It's my first big set on this channel. So overall, I guess I went into this with kind of low expectations. That was the reason I haven't picked it up for so long, is because I figured, well, I have the one from 2012. I mean, how much different can they be? And I will say it is so much more different than I expected. It's got definitely a different feel. It's very, very different in terms of both building techniques, action features, and all kinds of things to the 2012 X-wing. I feel like they've upgraded almost every aspect. They've added these the stud shooters and the not the flick fire missiles. What do you call these? They're the name is evading me, and I'm gonna think of it in very short. Oh, spring-loaded shooters. Yes, they added those to this, and if I can get this last one in, it popped out. Or well, I shot it off on accident. Anyways, you got stud shooters on the side here on both sides. 4 of the spring-loaded shooters, 1 on each wing, near the turret. So if I just get into maybe every aspect of this and every action feature that has been upgraded or works. First off, most noticeably, I guess, is the cockpit piece here, which is it's the newer design. It was on the Resistance X-wing, it was on the U-wing, and I believe a few other sets, including Poe's X-wing. But it's brand new to the original trilogy X-wing, and we'll get into the interior in a minute too. But this, I definitely prefer that piece to the one you see on like the snow speeders and things. Here's the one from the sand speeder. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I have the 2012 X-wing for comparison. I just don't want to go get it. Anyways, so if we move into the interior, it's quite similar, honestly, to the 2012 version, with some like minor exceptions. It's similar in the way that like it's bordered by these studs on the side construction, which is really, really intelligent by Lego, actually. Of course, the cockpit piece is different, but it's also got a little fire extinguisher in the back here, which I don't know how useful that would be, since fire can't burn in space. I'm in physics. But anyways, you can see that it does have one of these classic chair pieces, which, that's interesting. I mean, not many ships actually do, if you look at Lego's designs. But this one does, and I kind of like it, actually. And behind that, I suppose you could find a place to put the blaster pistol or his lightsaber separate from his hilt. But that all fits in there. The console piece, if I can get you to see it here, it's a little hard to get some light into there. And I shot another one. It's the classic gray tile, honestly. Like, we've seen this a lot, including there were like 2 on Director Krennic's Imperial shuttle. It's in the sand speeder. I believe it was in last year's snow speeder, maybe. I believe it's in the Y. No, it's not in the Y-wing. Anyways, it's several places. It's actually mounted not upside down, but kitty corner to what it should be. Flipped sort of this way. It's kind of upside down. But anyways, you'll know what I'm talking about if you get the set. But that's pretty much all I can say about the interior. Pretty similar. The R2 little space here is a little weird because you only have one stud on a side. And that's really all you need to keep him in there. But I don't know, it takes away from symmetricality for me, I guess. But that's it. Another drastic difference between this one and the X-wing from 2012 is the engine pods have just absolutely tripled in detail. It's crazy. I mean, I believe they came out with this rounded piece just for this set, as far as I know, because this is the only place I have ever seen it. Around it's this similar to the U-wing in terms of the front of these, where they've got a little ice pickaxe, if you can tell. That's that little line down, and makes the sort of familiar T shape within the engines that we see on the Canon X-wings. Moving on over, we've got pretty similar things. These 2x3 wedge plates on the side add a little bit of nice flair. And if we look on the wings, of course, those stickered pieces I mentioned earlier. Now we've got spring-loaded shooters, that was not a thing at all back on the 2012 X-wing. I don't know how I feel about them on this set. They do add to the play value, but I feel like they subtract from the display value, honestly. And they're not too ridiculously difficult to just omit from the set altogether. You totally could if you wanted to, but it would just require more work. Another thing I do love about this set is not just the stickers. The stickers are amazing, but the fact that they bring in this sand blue color and a pale yellow, and you can see on these stickers too, just to kind of show you that it's not a pristine ship. This has seen some wear and tear over the years, and you can see just by the seemingly random placement of these, you can tell if you look at the nose, there's a lot of gray pieces that are not symmetrical. And I think there's a few maroon ones too, but that just kind of goes to show that like this rebellion they're scrounging everything they can get. So that's kind of interesting to think about. In terms of action features, of course, you got the spring-loaded shooters, which they shoot. It's not difficult to see. If I can get you to see one without my hands in the way. So that's all there. The stud shooters, you press down on, they shoot. Moving on, if we just take a look at the back here, another thing that they've changed for this model is the way that these wings are attached, and it's through 6 1x2 plates with Technic connectors lined up in a row to sort of give you the impression of, I suppose, a tube there, or some sort of hinge, which looks a lot better than it did in 2012. The whole back area here has some interesting greebling on it, in which these pieces that make up the frame are held on by these moving pieces, whatever you call them. The center here the greebling is actually 2 Indiana Jones style pistols and a fireman's hose, meant to represent the tubing and things back here that you can clearly see in both the trench run and if you look at Poe's X-wing from The Force Awakens, where the stormtroopers shoot it, it's flaming, all that, you get to see it. You can of course see the rubber bands on the back, which on this it's not so bad because they're white and gray on a mainly white, gray, and maroon ship, which that's not terrible. There are 2 more main action features, but I'll show you this one first. Well, it's not really an action feature, but of course you got the landing skid that can pop up, fold away, fold down for landing, and it just sits like this. But the main action feature of the whole set is, of course, when you lock the wings into attack formation. Lock S foils into attack formation is the quote from episode 4 and episode 6, I believe, as well. But I think that this is probably the best mechanism that LEGO has designed for this to date. It just involves you sliding this tan piece back here forward, if you can sort of see what I'm getting at. And it does, if you just tap it, it tends to this, and that's due to the rubber bands that you can sort of see through here. But the only thing that really does to subtract from the look is give you this big gap here, which honestly, it would be used for greebling in it was used for greebling on the 2012, and on the Canon model, it is used for greebling. So it's not too terrible, and it's not too noticeable. Honestly, what you can do is, if you really, really wanted to, they have these ledges in here, you could just set pieces over it, and it doesn't have to be this one, but it can, of course, be any of your own pieces at home. So the other side to this is, once you have it in attack formation, if you want to land quickly, there's this little cone piece on the bottom here attached to it, 5.5 with a stopper Technic pin. And basically, if you set it on the ground or if you push up on this, the wings will automatically revert back. And I'll show you that just by setting it down, sort of. And then you can see, push down and they pop right back. And that, I mean, it is a little ugly when you pick it up and can see this thing dangling down, but it's not, that also is not hard to omit from the build. Honestly, it's pretty customizable. You can kind of make it what you want it. But that's just about it, except one last thing. So what I honestly think is, I really think that for these turrets, the cannons, the blaster cannons, LEGO definitely needs to just design a piece for the X-wings, because we've seen so many different variations, and now they're just doing that. If we look over at the 1999 X-wing, it consisted of a 2x2 radar dish with a 1x1 cone inside of it. And then we moved on to 2012 when it got the big remake, and that's an amount of pieces. It just involved cones and things, of course, still, but, and then the Resistance X-wing was this, but with one more tiny piece added onto the end. But I still feel like it doesn't do justice to the laser cannons we saw in Canon. I remember as a kid going to the movie theater and seeing these in attack position. They're kind of jiggly on their own, but like, if you can imagine, I'm sure most of the people seeing this video have seen the X-wings in theaters or whenever they saw it as a kid, but it had like a sort of a blast shield, if you know what I'm saying, that was a curvy line. And LEGO would have to mold a piece for that. It's really hard to emulate that in bricks. Otherwise, they would have done it already. But other than that, that's about it for this ship. And honestly, I'd say you get your money's worth. I was a little hesitant myself about buying this ship, simply because of there are a lot of really good ships out right now. If I can get this in here, but I was reluctant to pick this up because I already had a Resistance X-wing, already had the 1999 X-wing, and the 2012 X-wing. But this is incredibly worth it. It looks phenomenal. I mean, you always get that swishing feeling as a toy, and it's got enough as a display model that you really get what you pay for. So honestly, if you can pick this up on sale too, do it. On $79.99 isn't terrible for a ship with 730 pieces, and this thing is, it might seem sort of small. I mean, as it is an X-wing, it's not a Star Destroyer, but it's heavy, man. There's a lot of pieces in that thing that get the wheels turning. But I really like the ability to turn it into Biggs's too, and we saw that in 2012 when it was able to become Jack Porkins' Starfighter. So that was interesting. But that about sums my thoughts up on this set. So I think it was worth it. So check back, hopefully this upcoming weekend, I'll be doing a review video on, and this is the set that I posted on Instagram, and so I will also post this to Instagram. But if you guessed the MIDI Imperial Star Destroyer, you were right. And this is hard to, I'm gonna have to push that out of the way just to get this on here. But this should be what my next review video is on. It's my first Star Destroyer. It's my first MIDI set. Well, it's just the one of the two, but I'll voice my opinions on that in another review video, followed by, I believe, one for the sand speeder. And I think this is going to be my deviation from polybags. I know that before I said a lot about plans for just making polybag videos, and I got a bunch of them for it. But I feel like now I've kind of made the breakthrough to these bigger sets. So all in all, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, please comment, and just subscribe to my channel down below to keep me going. It's really helpful when I can get your feedback, so comment on anything you really liked, you really didn't like. Tell me if you agreed with me or didn't. If I missed anything, I'll pin it in a comment and pinpoint my source. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and happy building.